Right, if I could bring you in, Gugulethu, I mean, just having listened to what William is saying there, he's put it in a much, much broader context than the drama of the individuals that the media has tended to highlight. But at the end of the day, that's how most people have access to these issues. What do you think of how the ANC is dealing with the likes of Malema? Because it seems he is representative of a point of view within South African society that is seeking to be heard.
Well, he definitely is. I was disappointed to read in the press over here in London, if the press can be trusted over here, that he was due to be disciplined by the ANC. Malema is expressing he's frustrated, and like you were saying earlier on, he's of the new generation who are tired of waiting, you know, and he was born after the end, towards the end of apartheid, and he doesn't really see why he ought to be holding on for so much longer. He's called for nationalisation of the mining industry in South Africa, which really ought to have been discussed way back when by Mr. Nelson Mandela himself. Yeah. And unless somebody like him actually stands up and says, hey guys, we also need to have a share of our own wealth, and not even be apologetic about it. So I think it's grossly unfair that the ANC should be marginalising him or even reprimanding him.
Yes.
The BBC journalist and whatever happened there, BBC journalist, I was one for a while. Yeah. As far as they're concerned, they rule the world, and people should just, you know, adapt to how the BBC does things. And Malema pointed out that no, this is South Africa, this is how we do things over here, so he shouldn't really be in the hot soup that he is, I don't think.
Well, we're going to be discussing a little bit more about the banning. I mean, there's actually a banning of people from singing that controversial liberation struggle song, and perhaps look at what the implications of that kind of response is using the law. But the Malema controversy, is it really the issue? Do you think so? And what can Zuma do to reassure those white South Africans who feel that they're living under threat of death every time they leave their homes? But before we discuss the potential healing of racial tensions in South Africa, it's time for you to share what you think through our emails and texts to Africa Today. And we do have an email from somebody in South Africa who gets right to the point on this issue. He's called Imran. He says, you have the leader of the ANC Youth League, Malema, who goes out making apartheid statements and nobody dares to stop him. He's of absolutely no intellect, and God knows why and how he has such support. And oh yes, he's filling his coffers pretty well too. And our second email is from somebody in Tanzania who speaks about a problem many African governments face in general. And he says, if African countries need to develop, we need to have country goals set by economists, scientists, engineers, etc. And whoever comes in power has to accomplish those first. But what exists is whoever is in power has his interests with his sponsors. We need to change. Country first, individualism last. Do you agree? And now, moving on to texts, we have a text from Mohammed in Nigeria, who's talking about the crisis in the Plateau state, the Jos crisis. It's unfortunate that international media has the opposing point of view. The Plateau crisis is not about religion. It's about citizenship and land occupation. And from Konkwena in Zambia, a comment about the DRC crisis. The issue of armed groups in the DRC needs military action, just like the war against the Taliban. Why should Africans look at such criminals' actions? Well, plenty of food for thought there, and if you were provoked by any of those comments, do keep your thoughts flowing. Email africa@presstv.co.uk, or you can text +44 78 0000 8086. And another way of sharing your thoughts on Africa Today is by joining our Facebook fan page at Africa Today, Press TV London. Coming up next, we'll be discussing Zuma's enormous task of both asserting the African identity of his country whilst manoeuvring a gradual transfer of power from the minority white community that still controls the economic machinery. Before that, here's Kofi Asamoah with a report on the current state of South Africa's race relations.
The South African Institute on Race Relations estimates that some 800,000 out of a total white population of 4 million have left South Africa since the end of apartheid. Moreover, the remaining white farmers in the country have reduced to only about 40,000. A research from the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation put new race figures as follows. 24% of South Africans do not speak to people of other races on a typical day. 46% never socialize with people of other races in their own homes or friends' homes. 39% find people of other races untrustworthy. 59% said they found it difficult to understand the customs and ways of people of other races.
It may be called the Rainbow Nation, but it seems from those figures that South Africa has quite a way to go in terms of balancing the differences between the races. I don't know if you managed to hear all of that, William, there in Johannesburg. I mean, what do you feel about those figures? I mean, 39% finding people of other races untrustworthy. A bit depressing. Do you feel that as you live in South Africa?
Yes, but I just wanted to get to, what my colleague was saying earlier on Julius Malema. I think, we've got the problem is also the economy for the majority of black South Africans, they haven't had the material benefits, of democracy. That's the one fact. But unfortunately, a small minority of blacks are also doing very, very well. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing is, but some people are actually using for their own personal benefit, resentment of the vast black majority who's been left behind. And I think we have to put Julius Malema in context. If he was honest, and if he then make an argument for the poor majority, that's a different story. But if he is somebody who owns companies through the state, walks around with 300,000 rand watch, have 3-4 cars that's very, very expensive and so on and those kind of things, then, is a bit of abuse of very genuine concerns among black people. And
well, okay, thank you, William. And that seems to reflect, Thandi, what Imran from South Africa was saying, the perception that Malema is filling his coffers and, he has such support. Do you think it's true that he has such a level of support as the media is leading us to believe, or is this an exaggeration?
He has the level of support because I have actually, just before coming here, I did look through, because the government, I think, was also doing the same thing, checking. So they have gone through the country in all the regions and checked with all the youth leagues to see whether there was an approval, except for 2 that they didn't find. Yeah. 2 of the regional youth leagues that they didn't have a response from. All the other youth leagues said, yes, he's allowed to make mistakes, and he has apologized for his mistakes, but we're 100% behind him. So he has a following. That, whether people like it or not, that it's there. That, at least I read that in the same British press that is supposedly the true press, right, in News 24. The second thing is that that's where racism starts. When you see a black person in South Africa having some kind of economic ability to live and improve the lives of their own people, it's suddenly seen as corruption. A 28-year-old white South African probably has more money in the bank and more shares than Malema. I don't know if Malema has got that money that he supposedly had. He has given out and said to them, please go and investigate. And if I'm guilty, put me in jail or whatever it is. He's thrown out the gauntlet for them to actually do it.